when you were making that album, or closing, kind of getting close to finishing that album, were you aware of like kind of how you were making your own place in the realm of bass playing? You know, were you did you kind of look at your bass playing in like a long term way, like what am I doing with the instrument amongst all the other bass players? Was there any self awareness with that?
No, actually, and that, if anything, I wish I could get back to. There was no self-consciousness whatsoever. And that didn't kick in until I moved to New York a couple of years later. And suddenly I was listening to all these session guys, and I thought, fuck,
Yeah.
you know. And I got scared. And I mean, I get scared walking in a room like that one, and, you know, where everybody's doing all this stuff, you know, and I'm like, I can't do any of that. You know? But I've got a great idea for a video. Yeah, there was no self-consciousness around that. We were all learning together. And, you know, we had absolute confidence that what we were doing, we weren't trying to be anybody else. You know, we were just trying to be the best that we could be, individually and collectively.
Oh, that's sweet. You obviously there's a strong connection with Bernard. I was always curious though, as you know, as somebody kind of on their own bass journey, was Jocko ever in your mind or in your head? Because sometimes I feel like I hear, like in the tone and some of the phrasing and stuff, there's definitely some Bernard feel, and sometimes it's like, wow, I can hear that Jocko spirit coming through with the articulation and stuff.
I think if you can, it's probably secondhand through Mick Karn.
Ah, Mick, yeah, in Japan.
Yeah, because I think he was probably a Jacko fan. I mean, Jacko never really, I was just talking about the movie actually, and it never really spoke to me. It always felt very intellectual to me. And I mean, jazz, you know, I can't, although I don't know that I would, I don't know. I mean, I've had moments listening to Weather Report. It's just never really moved me. So I've never consciously thought, oh, I'd like to do that. I'd like to play like that. You know, da 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 da. So no, not really. But Mick Karn was an influence. I don't know. Do you play fretless often?
I try.
Yeah.
Behind closed doors.
It's a whole other.
No one will ever hear
whole
it.
other beast, isn't it?
Yeah.
And again, I think with technology, as technology has taken us to the level of pitching that is required today to fit into the Pro Tools, and it's just like, forget about it. You know, it's too difficult. But I enjoyed on Rio actually. I enjoyed, you know, dropping a little fretless on top of a bed made by the other. But I don't know. I just sort of grew away from it, and you know, I'm not terribly interested in it now.
I can dig that. I can definitely dig that. You mentioned Mick Karn, and that definitely is something that whenever I come across hearing something about Japan, I can draw the connection. Like, yeah, that's so sweet. And how did you come across? What was the first time you came across Mick's playing?
Actually, Nick and I went to see Japan. I mean, it's funny, when Japan came along, everybody thought because they looked like the New York Dolls, they were going to sound like the New York Dolls. And that was what we were into. And so when we got this album, and it was like this kind of like funky kind of like soul thing, it was like, what's that? And so we kind of put it aside, but I don't know how Nick and I found ourselves at a nightclub just before the second album came out. And they came out, and Steve had, you know, it was the first time I'd seen a Tama kit with the Rototoms. Ooh. And, you know, it was still with Rob Dean playing guitar, so it's before, it's before Quiet Life. And we just glommed onto them. We were just looking, it was post-punk, you know, we were kind of like, we'd sort of like ran out of, we weren't terribly interested in what the guitar bands were doing. We were looking for something new, and we totally glommed onto them, and we started following them around. We'd go down to London to see them. I mean, I appreciate the way you would, not to go back, but how you were describing how you heard my sound, what I was playing within the mix. I feel like that with Mick, actually. And within a song like Quiet Life, I mean, for me, Quiet Life was the album. I mean, I know Tin Drum is the masterpiece. You know, I know a lot of people that feel that record the most, but to me, it was Quiet Life. And a song like Quiet Life or Love's in Vogue, you know, there's what David's doing on top, but actually the soul that's coursing through the middle of it, that I really connected with was what Mick was doing. very soulful.
I can definitely dig that. Like the kind of the through line, the centerpiece. That's when I heard your bass playing, and to this day when I hear your bass playing, it seems to carry just kind of tremendous responsibility for getting the song from A to Z. It's and you talk about like kind of having an aversion towards, not an aversion, but not wanting to be in a played out guitar thing, you know, like you guys were like not really paying attention to the guitar stuff going on, and that's something I admire a lot, and I like to apply, and I love to hear it when people apply, when they can take the bass and tell the story of the song through the bass line, where it's not just it's not a secondary, tertiary thing.
Bernard used to talk about that. He used to talk about that all the time, about telling a story from start to finish. And I think that's one of the many struggles, you know, that one has had, you know, with technology and adapting to technology. The recording today is like, you know, let's just get a 4-bar loop and let's cut it, and you know, and like we're fighting that always, right? You know, I mean, I think most instrumentalists are fighting that, you know, where you really you want to. I mean, in the early days, the producers would just sit while I just figured out a way to get from A to Z, you know, and now it's like, you know, the first thing you play, they go, that's good, I can work with that. You know, let me put that through the tools, turn it upside down, I'll just make it a little different here so that it sounds like you're doing a fill on the 4th bar. And I'm like, and it's like, I am temperamentally quite sort of lazy, and given left to my own devices, I'll probably say, you know what, I'll be back in an hour. And, you know, so don't make it too easy for me, you know.